The arrival. Zhou Chen stood at the entrance of the Galactic Academy of Sciences, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The massive crystalline structure loomed before her, its iridescent spires reaching towards the purple sky of Nexus Prime. As the first human exchange student to attend the most prestigious scientific institution in the known universe, Zhou felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, adjusted her environmental suit, and stepped through the airlock. The alien atmosphere inside the academy was breathable for humans, but it would take some getting used to. The air had a slight metallic taste and seemed to fizz on her tongue. As Zhou made her way through the grand atrium, she couldn't help but marvel at the diversity of life forms around her. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions moved about their day. Some floated gracefully through the air, while others slithered or rolled across the floor. The cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses that served as communication for many species was almost overwhelming. A holographic map materialized in front of her, guiding her to the xenobiology department. Zhou followed the glowing path, trying not to stare too obviously at her fellow students. She noticed, however, that many of them were openly gawking at her. Some even seemed to be giving her a wide berth, their appendages or sensory organs twitching nervously as she passed. Probably just curious, Zhou muttered to herself. I mean, how many humans have they seen up close? She arrived at the lecture hall for her first xenobiology class and took a seat near the front. The room was designed to accommodate a wide variety of body types, with adjustable gravity fields and atmospheric bubbles for species with specific needs. As other students filed in, Zhou noticed a pattern. The seats immediately surrounding her remained empty, creating a conspicuous bubble of space. She frowned, wondering if she had inadvertently broken some alien social rule. Before she could dwell on it further, the professor entered. Professor Xylix was a Zephyrian, a being composed of swirling gases held together by an electromagnetic field. Their voice resonated through the room, a harmonic blend of tones that the universal translator converted into comprehensible speech. Welcome, students, to Advanced Xenobiology, Professor Xylix began. This term, we are honored to have with us a representative from one of the most fascinating and, dare I say, controversial species in the galaxy. Zhou Chen of Earth, please stand and introduce yourself. Zhou felt her cheeks burn as all eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, turned to her. She stood, clearing her throat. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhou Chen from Earth. I'm excited to be here and learn about all the incredible diversity of life in our galaxy. A murmur rippled through the class. Zhou caught fragments of translated whispers. Deathworlder. How did she even survive the journey? I heard they eat other sentients. Professor Xylix's electromagnetic field pulsed, silencing the chatter. Now, let's not get caught up in rumors and speculation. This class is about scientific observation and analysis, which brings me to our first practical experiment of the term. The professor's form shimmered with excitement. Today, we will be conducting a routine cellular adaptation test. We'll observe how different cell types react to various environmental stressors. Who would like to volunteer a sample? The room fell silent. Zhou, eager to make a good impression and break the ice with her classmates, raised her hand. I'd be happy to volunteer, Professor. The silence deepened, if that was possible. Professor Xylix's gaseous form swirled faster, a sign Zhou would later learn indicated surprise or agitation. Are you certain, Miss Chen? The process can be quite intense for some species. Zhou nodded confidently. Of course, we did similar experiments in my high school biology class back on Earth. It's no big deal. The words "no big deal" seemed to echo ominously through the lecture hall. A Medusan student in the back row fainted, their crystalline body chiming as it hit the floor. Professor Xylix's voice took on a slightly higher pitch. Very well. Please approach the main laboratory station. We'll begin with a simple extraction of epithelial cells. As Zhou stood and walked to the front of the room, She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just volunteered for something far more significant than she realized. The eyes of her alien classmates followed her every move, a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity evident in their gazes. Little did Zoe know, her routine experiment was about to turn the Galactic Academy of Sciences upside down, challenging everything these alien students thought they knew about biology, resilience, and the nature of life itself. Professor Xylix's gaseous form condensed slightly, a sign of concentration. Now, Miss Chen, if you could just provide a small sample of your epithelial cells. A simple swab of the inside of your cheek should suffice. Zoe nodded, reaching for the swab. Sure, no problem. Like this. She casually scraped the inside of her cheek and handed the swab back to the professor. The casual way Zoe handled her own genetic material sent a shockwave through the class. A Volcrin student's bioluminescent patches began pulsing rapidly in distress, while a group of Arborians rustled their leaf-like appendages in what could only be described as a collective gasp. Professor Xylix took the sample with a specialized containment field. Thank you, Miss Chen. Now, class, observe closely as we subject this sample to various environmental stressors. The professor placed the sample into a complex machine. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing magnified views of Zoe's cells. As different stressors were introduced, heat, cold, radiation, acidic and alkaline solutions, the class watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. To everyone's shock, including Professor Xylix, Zoe's cells demonstrated remarkable resilience. They adapted to each stressor, showing signs of damage but quickly repairing themselves. Extraordinary, Professor Xylix murmured. Miss Chen, are you aware that your cellular structure is exhibiting signs of, well, what we would classify as extreme environmental adaptation? Zoe blinked, confused. Not really. I mean, humans are pretty adaptable, but this all seems pretty standard to me. The word standard sent another ripple of unease through the class. A quantum hivement in the front row began to vibrate at an alarming frequency, its trillion constituent particles clearly agitated. Professor Xylix's gaseous form swirled faster. Standard? Miss Chen, your cells are demonstrating resilience levels that we typically associate with extremophiles from the most hostile environments in the galaxy. Are all humans like this? Zoe shrugged. I guess so. We're not really anything special. There are plenty of creatures on Earth that are way tougher than us. The idea that there were even more resilient life forms on Earth seemed to be the last straw for some students. The Medusan who had fainted earlier crystallized completely, entering a defensive stasis. A group of etheric wisps began to diffuse uncontrollably, their normally cohesive forms spreading thin in anxiety. Professor Xylix struggled to maintain composure. Class, please remain calm. This is unexpected, but remember, we are scientists. We observe, we analyze, we learn. Miss Chen, would you be willing to provide more samples for further study? Zoe, still not fully grasping the magnitude of the situation, nodded. Sure, if it helps. What do you need? Blood? Skin cells? I could probably give a hair sample too if that's useful. The casual offer of blood and tissue samples was too much for the class to handle. Panic erupted. Students began fleeing the lecture hall, some leaving scorch marks on the floor in their haste. The quantum hivement collapsed into individual particles, scattering under desks and chairs. Even the normally unflappable Zephyrians in the class began to lose cohesion, their gaseous forms wavering erratically. Amidst the chaos, Zoe stood at the front of the room, utterly bewildered. She turned to Professor Xylix, who was barely maintaining their form. Did I say something wrong? Professor Xylix's voice came out as a strained whisper. Miss Chen, I believe we may need to reevaluate our entire curriculum, and possibly our understanding of life in the universe. As alarms began to blare throughout the Galactic Academy of Sciences, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that her exchange program was going to be a lot more eventful than she had anticipated. Little did she know, Her simple biology experiment was about to turn her into the most feared and fascinating being in the entire institution. The experiment gone wrong. The alarms continued to echo through the halls of the Galactic Academy of Sciences as Zoe stood in the now empty lecture hall, surrounded by the scattered remnants of her panicked classmates. Professor Xylix had managed to regain some composure, their gaseous form settling into a more stable configuration. "Miss Chen," the professor began, their voice still wavering slightly, "I believe we need to have a serious discussion about your unique biology." Zoe frowned, still confused by the extreme reaction. "Professor, I don't understand. What's so special about my cells? We're just ordinary humans." Before Professor Xylix could respond, the doors to the lecture hall burst open. A team of beings in what looked like hazmat suits rushed in, led by a tall, insectoid creature with multifaceted eyes and vibrating antennae. "I am Dean Zorax," the insectoid announced, mandibles clicking. "We've detected a Class X biological anomaly in this vicinity. Is everyone all right? Where is the threat?" Professor Xylix's form rippled in what might have been a sigh. "Dean Zorax, I assure you, there's no immediate danger. We were simply conducting a routine cellular adaptation test with our new exchange student, Miss Zoe Chen from Earth." All of Dean Zorax's eyes swiveled to focus on Zoe, who gave an awkward wave. Hi. Look, I'm really sorry about all this. I didn't mean to cause any trouble." The Dean's antennae twitched rapidly. "You're the human, the Deathworlder, and you're just standing here." Without containment, Zoe's patience began to wear thin. "Okay, what is going on? Why does everyone keep acting like I'm some kind of monster? I'm just a normal girl from Earth." Dean Zorax turned to Professor Xylix. "Explain. Now." The professor's gaseous form condensed as they prepared to speak. "We were conducting a standard cellular stress test. Miss Chen volunteered a sample, and well, perhaps it's best if I show you." Professor Xylix reactivated the holographic displays, showing recordings of how Zoe's cells had reacted to the various stressors. Dean Zorax's exoskeleton paled, a feat Zoe wouldn't have thought possible. "By the cosmic egg," the Dean breathed. "Those cells, they're adapting to everything we throw at them. It's as if they're evolving in real time." Zoe threw up her hands in exasperation. "That's just how human cells work. We learned about this in high school. It's basic stuff." Dean Zorax's mandibles clacked rapidly. "Basic? Miss Chen, what you call basic is nothing short of miraculous to the rest of the galactic community. Your cellular resilience is off the charts. It's beautiful and terrifying." An idea struck Zoe. "Wait, is this why everyone's been avoiding me since I got here? They think I'm some kind of super being." Professor Xylix's form rippled in affirmation. "I'm afraid so, Miss Chen. Most species in the galaxy evolved in far more stable environments than Earth. The very fact that you can survive, even thrive, in what we would consider extreme conditions is unsettling to many." Zoe couldn't help but laugh, which only served to startle Dean Zorax and his hazmat team. "This is ridiculous. Humans aren't special. We're not even the toughest creatures on our own planet. You should see tardigrades or extremophile bacteria." The mere mention of even hardier Earth life forms caused a ripple of unease through the hazmat team. Dean Zorax's antennae went rigid. "There are more like you, even more resilient." Zoe nodded enthusiastically, warming to the subject. "Oh yeah, Earth is full of amazing creatures. We've got animals that can survive in volcanoes, bacteria that eat radiation, insects that can withstand the vacuum of space. It's really fascinating stuff." With each example, the alarm on Dean Zorax's face grew. Professor Xylix's gaseous form began to swirl erratically again. The hazmat team started backing away slowly. Oblivious to the growing tension, Zoe continued, "And don't even get me started on our extremophiles. We've got organisms that can survive in sulfuric acid, others that thrive in salt crystals. Oh, and there are these fish in Antarctica that have antifreeze proteins in their blood. Isn't that cool? See cool. Dean Zorex stammered. Miss Chen, what you're describing sounds like a planet of nightmares. How can you speak so casually about such horrors? Zoe blinked, finally noticing the fear she'd inadvertently caused. Horrors. But it's just nature. It's beautiful. All these creatures finding ways to survive and thrive in tough conditions. Isn't that what life is all about? Professor Oxylix managed to pull themselves together enough to interject. Miss Chen, while your enthusiasm is admirable, I think you need to understand that for most galactic species, the conditions you described are unimaginably harsh. The idea of life not just surviving but flourishing in such environments is, well, it challenges many of our fundamental assumptions about the nature of life itself. Zoe frowned, a realization dawning. So, when you were running those tests on my cells, you weren't expecting them to survive. Dean Zorax nodded gravely. Miss Chen, the stressors we exposed your sample to would have destroyed the cellular structure of most known species. The fact that your cells not only survived but adapted, it's unprecedented. A mix of emotions washed over Zoe. Pride in her species' resilience, frustration at the misunderstanding, and a growing sense of isolation. She was suddenly, acutely aware of how alien she was in this place. So, what happens now? She asked, her voice small. Dean Zorax and Professor Tylix exchanged looks. Well, the Dean began. Protocol dictates that in the face of an unknown biological entity of this magnitude, we should initiate quarantine procedures and begin a full scientific evaluation. Quarantine and investigation. Zoe sat on the edge of a metallic bed in the Academy's medical bay, swinging her legs idly as she watched a team of alien scientists scurry about. The room was a marvel of advanced technology, with holographic displays flickering with data and strange machines humming softly in the background. Despite the fascinating environment, Zoe couldn't help but feel like a lab specimen. Miss Chen, a melodious voice chimed. It belonged to Dr. Lyra, a Luminian scientist whose bioluminescent body pulsed with gentle colors as she spoke. We're ready to begin our first round of tests. Are you comfortable? Zoe nodded, trying to keep her frustration in check. As comfortable as I can be, given the circumstances. Can you at least tell me how long this quarantine is going to last? Dr. Lyra's colors shifted to a soft blue, which Zoe had learned indicated sympathy. I understand this must be difficult for you. We're working as quickly as we can, but the truth is, we've never encountered a being quite like you before. It's crucial that we understand the full extent of your capabilities. My capabilities, Zoe repeated, unable to keep the sarcasm from her voice. You mean the fact that I can survive in what you all consider extreme conditions? Before Dr. Lyra could respond, the doors to the medical bay slid open with a soft hiss. Dean Zorax entered, followed by a diverse group of aliens that Zoe assumed were other department heads or senior scientists. Ah, Miss Chen, Dean Zorax clicked, his mandibles twitching in what might have been an attempt at a reassuring smile. I hope you're finding your accommodations satisfactory. I've brought some colleagues who are very interested in learning more about you and your fascinating species. Zoe straightened up, suddenly feeling like she was facing a tribunal rather than a group of curious scientists. Look, I appreciate your interest, but I really think this is all a big misunderstanding. Humans aren't some kind of super beings. We're just adaptable. A tall, willowy being with crystalline skin that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns stepped forward. Adaptable, she says. The being chuckled, its voice like tinkling glass. My dear, what you call adaptable, we call miraculous. I am Professor Crystalia of the Evolutionary Studies Department. The data from your cellular stress tests, it's revolutionary. Your DNA repair mechanisms alone could advance our understanding of genetics by centuries. Another scientist, a hovering cloud of glittering particles that Zoe recognized as a nebulite, pulsed with excitement. Indeed, the implications for medical science are staggering. Imagine treatments derived from human cellular regeneration capabilities. We could cure diseases previously thought untreatable. Zoe felt a mix of pride and unease at their words. On one hand, it was flattering to think that human biology could be so beneficial to the galactic community. On the other, she couldn't shake the feeling that she, and by extension, all of humanity, was being viewed as a resource to be studied and exploited rather than a sentient species to be respected. "That's great," Zoe said cautiously. "But don't you think it would be better to discuss this kind of thing with our scientists back on Earth? I'm just a student. I'm not qualified to make decisions about sharing our genetic information." Dean Zorax's antennae twitched nervously. "Ah, yes. Well, you see, Miss Chen, the situation is a bit more complicated than that. Your presence here has caused quite a stir in the galactic scientific community. Some are calling for extensive study of human biology before we even consider opening official diplomatic channels with Earth." Zoe's eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, what? You're saying you want to study us before you'll even talk to us properly? That's not right." Dr. Lyra's colors shifted to a concerned purple. "Please understand, Miss Chen, it's not just about scientific curiosity. There are concerns about the potential impact of human biology on the wider galaxy. Your resilience, while remarkable, also raises questions about potential biohazards." "Biohazards?" Zoe repeated, incredulous. "We're not a disease. We're a sentient species, just like all of you." Professor Crystalia's crystalline form shimmered apologetically. "Of course you are, my dear. But you must understand, your very presence challenges many of our long-held beliefs about life and its limitations. Some fear that introducing humans to the galactic community too quickly could have unforeseen consequences." Zoe stood up, her patience finally wearing thin. "This is ridiculous. You can't just keep me here and treat me like some kind of lab experiment. I have rights." The room fell silent, the alien scientists exchanging uncomfortable glances. It was Dean Zorax who finally broke the silence, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "Miss Chen, Zoe, you're right. This situation is unprecedented, and in our scientific zeal, we may have overlooked the ethical implications of our actions. You are indeed a sentient being deserving of respect and autonomy." Zoe felt a glimmer of hope. "So, you'll let me go. Contact Earth." The Dean's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Not quite yet, but I propose a compromise. Instead of treating you as a subject of study, we invite you to be an active participant in our research. Share your knowledge of human biology. Help us understand your species on your own terms. In return, we'll ensure your comfort and freedom within the Academy, and work towards establishing proper diplomatic channels with Earth." Zoe considered the offer. It wasn't ideal, but it was a step in the right direction. Plus, she realized, this could be an opportunity to change perceptions about humans and pave the way for better understanding between species. "All right," she said finally. "I'll do it, but on one condition." "Name it," Dean Zorax said eagerly. Zoe grinned, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I want to continue my studies. If I'm going to be teaching you about humans, I want to keep learning about all of you too. Deal?" The alien scientists looked at each other, then back at Zoe. Slowly, expressions of surprise turned to smiles, or the closest approximation their various physiologies allowed. "Deal," Dean Zorax said, extending a multi-jointed appendage. As Zoe shook the Dean's hand, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. This wasn't how she'd expected her exchange program to go, but it was shaping up to be the adventure of a lifetime. Little did she know, her greatest challenge and opportunity was yet to come. As the first human ambassador to the galactic scientific community, Zoe was about to play a crucial role in shaping the future of human-alien relations, and it all started with a simple biology experiment. Unexpected crisis. Weeks had passed since Zoe's agreement with Dean Zorax, and life at the Galactic Academy of Sciences had settled into a strange new normal. Zoe split her time between attending classes, participating in carefully controlled experiments, and giving impromptu lectures on human biology and Earth's ecosystem. Her fellow students, once terrified, now regarded her with a mixture of awe and cautious curiosity. On this particular day, Zoe found herself in the Academy's impressive biodome, a massive structure housing thousands of alien plant species from across the galaxy. She was assisting Professor Chlora, a sentient fungal network, with a xenobotany project. Fascinating. Professor Clora's voice resonated through her mycelial strands. So you're saying that on Earth, some plants have evolved to require fire for their seeds to germinate? Zoe nodded, carefully tending to a specimen of Venusian starfern. That's right. We call them pyrophytic plants. They're common in areas prone to wildfires, like parts of Australia and California. Professor Clora's spores pulsed with excitement. Remarkable. The resilience of Earth's life forms never ceases to amaze me. To think, life that not only survives fire, but requires it to propagate. As they continued their work, a low rumble shook the biodome. At first, Zoe thought nothing of it. Strange noises and vibrations were common in a facility housing so many diverse life forms. But when the rumble grew into a sustained tremor, she knew something was wrong. Alarms began to blare throughout the academy. The biodome's atmospheric regulators sputtered and died, plunging the vast chamber into darkness, save for the bioluminescent glow of some alien flora. Professor, Zoe called out, her voice tight with concern. What's happening? Before Professor Chlora could respond, the emergency communication system crackled to life. Dean Zorax's voice, usually calm and measured, now carried an edge of panic. Attention all Academy personnel and students. We are experiencing a critical failure in our primary and secondary power systems. Emergency protocols are now in effect. Please remain calm and proceed to your designated safety zones. As the announcement ended, chaos erupted in the biodome. Various alien plant species, suddenly freed from their carefully maintained environmental controls, began to react violently. Acidic spores filled the air, caustic vines whipped about wildly, and carnivorous flora started to expand at an alarming rate. Zoe, Professor Clora's voice cut through the mayhem. We must evacuate immediately. Many of these species will not survive in these conditions, and some may become extremely dangerous. Zoe's mind raced. She knew that for many of her alien companions, the current conditions in the biodome, which to her felt like a warm, humid day back on Earth, could be life-threatening. She had to act fast. Professor, can you use your mycelial network to communicate with the other plants? Maybe calm them down, or at least direct their growth away from the exits. Professor Clora's spores flickered thoughtfully. I can try. But Zoe, you must get to safety. Your human physiology might be resilient, but even you cannot withstand prolonged exposure to some of these species. Zoe shook her head firmly. I'm not leaving you or anyone else behind. My Deathworlder biology might be the edge we need to get everyone out safely. Without waiting for a response, Zoe sprang into action. She grabbed a nearby lab coat, using it to cover her mouth and nose against the thickening spore cloud. With her free hand, she activated her personal communicator. This is Zoe Chen, human exchange student. I'm in Biodome 3 with Professor Chlora. We have multiple sentient plant species at risk and potentially hostile flora, requesting immediate assistance and containment measures. As she moved through the biodome, Zoe's training kicked in. She remembered the xenobiology lessons on each species, mentally cataloging their vulnerabilities and potential dangers. A group of Meldovian gas pods were beginning to rupture, their hallucinogenic spores drifting towards a cluster of panicked crystalline students. Without hesitation, Zoe rushed forward. She grabbed a piece of broken equipment, using it to puncture the gas pods before they could fully deploy their spores. The acrid gas stung her eyes and skin, but she grit her teeth and pressed on. "Everyone, this way," she shouted, guiding the crystalline students towards the nearest emergency exit. "Cover your sensory clusters and stay low." As she worked to evacuate the biodome, Zoe couldn't help but marvel at how her once feared Deathworlder traits were now proving crucial for survival. Her denser bone structure allowed her to push through thrashing vines that would have shattered a crystalline's form. Her efficient respiratory system and higher body temperature helped her resist the effects of the alien spores that were quickly overwhelming others. But even Zoe had her limits. As she helped the last group of students towards the exit, she felt her strength beginning to wane. The cocktail of alien biologics in the air was taking its toll, her vision blurring and her muscles screaming in protest. Just as she thought she couldn't take another step, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Miss Chen, over here." Through the haze, Zoe saw Dean Zorax leading a team of emergency responders in environmental suits. Relief washed over her as she stumbled towards them, the last of the evacuees in tow. As the biodome doors sealed behind them, Zoe finally allowed herself to collapse, her body shaking with exhaustion and the after-effects of exposure to multiple alien substances. She felt gentle hands guiding her onto a medical gurney. "Extraordinary," she heard Dean Zorax murmur. "Simply extraordinary. Miss Chen, you've just done the impossible. You've survived conditions that would have been lethal to any other known species." Zoe managed a weak smile. "Just doing what any human would do in an emergency. Is everyone okay?" As the medical team worked to stabilize her, Zoe drifted in and out of consciousness. In her lucid moments, she caught snippets of conversation around her. Unprecedented cellular regeneration, adapting to the alien compounds in real time, could revolutionize our emergency response protocols. Before she fully lost consciousness, Zoe had one last, defiant thought. Maybe now they'll see that human resilience isn't something to fear, but something that could benefit the entire galaxy. Little did she know, her actions in the biodome crisis were about to change everything, not just for her, but for human-alien relations across the cosmos. Understanding and acceptance. Zoe Chen awoke to the soft hum of medical equipment and the gentle glow of bioluminescent lighting. As her eyes adjusted, she realized she was in the Academy's medical bay, a place she had become all too familiar with, though usually as a subject of study rather than a patient. "Ah, our hero awakens," a familiar voice chimed. Dr. Lyra, the Luminian scientist, glided into view, her body pulsing with warm, welcoming colors. "How are you feeling, Zoe?" Zoe sat up slowly, taking stock of her body. To her surprise, she felt good. Really good, actually. "I feel great," she said, a note of wonder in her voice. "How long was I out?" 3 standard galactic days, Dr. Lyra replied. "Your recovery has been nothing short of miraculous. We've been monitoring your cellular regeneration rates, and well, you've given us a lot to think about." Before Zoe could respond, the medical bay doors slid open. Dean Zorax entered, followed by a procession of alien dignitaries and scientists. Zoe recognized some from her classes, while others were completely new to her. "Miss Chen," Dean Zorax began, his mandibles clicking in what Zoe had learned was a sign of deep respect. "On behalf of the entire Galactic Academy of Sciences, and indeed, the wider galactic community, I want to express our profound gratitude and admiration for your actions during the biodome crisis." Zoe felt a blush creeping up her cheeks. "I just did what anyone would do in that situation. I couldn't stand by while others were in danger." A tall, ethereal being stepped forward. Its body seemed to be composed of swirling stardust, and when it spoke, its voice resonated with cosmic harmonies. "Young human, I am Ambassador Celestia of the Galactic Council. Your actions have sparked intense debate and reflection among our highest governing bodies." Zoe's eyes widened. She'd heard of the Galactic Council, of course, but never imagined she'd be addressing one of its representatives directly. Ambassador Celestia continued, For too long, we have viewed Earth and its inhabitants through a lens of fear and misunderstanding. We saw your resilience as a potential threat, your adaptability as a danger to the delicate balance of our galactic ecosystem. But you, Zhou Chen, have shown us the error of our ways. Another figure stepped forward, this one a quantum hive mind that Zhou recognized from her xenobiology class. Its trillion constituent particles formed a rough humanoid shape as it addressed her. Your actions in the biodome demonstrated that human resilience isn't just about survival. It's about protecting and nurturing others. You risked your own safety to save species that once feared you. It's humbling. Zhou felt overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. I'm just one person. I can't speak for all of humanity. Dean Zorax's antennae twitched in what Zhou now recognized as amusement. Perhaps not, Miss Chen, but you've certainly given us reason to reconsider our approach to human-alien relations. Ambassador Celestia nodded, stardust swirling. Indeed, the Galactic Council has voted to open official diplomatic channels with Earth. We believe it's time for humanity to take its place in the wider galactic community. Zhou's jaw dropped. Are you serious? That's incredible. But what changed your mind so quickly? Dr. Lyra stepped forward, her colors shifting to a thoughtful blue. It wasn't just your heroic actions, Zhou. It was how your body responded afterward. The way your cells adapted to and neutralized the alien compounds you were exposed to. It's revolutionary. We've already begun developing new medical treatments based on our observations of your recovery. The quantum hive mind buzzed with excitement. And it's not just medicine. The applications in environmental adaptation, space exploration, even terraforming. The potential is staggering. We've been so focused on the perceived threats of human biology that we failed to see its incredible potential for positive change. Zhou felt a swell of pride, not just for herself, but for her entire species. So, what happens now? Dean Zorax straightened, his exoskeleton gleaming. Now, Miss Chen, we'd like to offer you a unique opportunity. We want you to be the official liaison between Earth and the Galactic Academy of Sciences. You'll continue your studies here, but also help us prepare for increased human presence in our programs. Your insights will be invaluable as we restructure our xenobiology curriculum and safety protocols. Ambassador Celestia added, furthermore, we'd like you to assist in the diplomatic process as we establish formal relations with Earth. Your unique perspective as both a human and someone familiar with galactic society will be crucial in bridging our cultures. Zhou's mind reeled at the implications. She, a formerly ordinary college student from Earth, was being offered a chance to shape the future of human-alien relations. It was daunting, exhilarating, and more than a little surreal. I'd be honored, Zhou said finally, her voice thick with emotion. But I have one condition. The assembled aliens looked at her expectantly. Zhou grinned. I want to organize an interspecies cultural exchange program. If we're going to build understanding between humans and aliens, we need to learn about each other, not just biologically, but culturally too. Music, art, food, customs, the whole works. The room erupted in a chorus of agreement, each species expressing enthusiasm in their own unique way. Dean Zorax's mandibles clicked rapidly in excitement. Ambassador Celestia's stardust form sparkled brilliantly, and the quantum hive mind performed a complex dimensional dance of approval. As the excitement settled, Zhou looked around at the diverse array of beings surrounding her. Just weeks ago, many of them had feared her, viewed her as a potential threat or a scientific curiosity. Now they were looking at her with respect, admiration, and genuine warmth. She thought back to that first day in xenobiology class, when a simple cellular adaptation test had sparked a chain of events that led to this moment. Who could have imagined that a routine science experiment would end up changing the course of galactic history? As plans were made and ideas exchanged around her, Zhou felt a profound sense of hope for the future. Humanity was about to take its first real steps into the galactic community, and she would be there to help guide the way. There would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings to navigate, and bridges to build. But looking at the diverse group of aliens around her, each unique and incredible in their own way, Zoe knew that the possibilities for cooperation and mutual growth were limitless. The ordinary had become extraordinary, fear had turned to fascination, and a simple exchange student had become a catalyst for interstellar understanding. As Zoe Chen prepared to embark on her new role as a bridge between worlds, she couldn't help but smile. The greatest experiment of all, the blending of human and alien cultures, was just beginning.